By 1983, Star Wars was no longer a surprise. The mythology was known, the villain revealed, the ending expected. But Return of the Jedi wasn't about victory. It was about choice, surrender, and whether power can be refused when everything demands you take it. The opening doesn't promise triumph, it promises resolution, and resolution means confronting what victory actually costs. And Luke Skywalker walks into frame dressed like the enemy he's meant to destroy. These are 20 hidden details you completely missed in Return of the Jedi. Number 1. The film opens with silence, not action. The opening shots of Tatooine linger without urgency, without the momentum audiences expected after Empire's cliffhanger ending. No immediate threat charges into frame. No battle defines the stakes within seconds. Director Richard Marquand and cinematographer Alan Hume deliberately slowed the pacing, letting the camera drift across endless desert and empty sky before anything moves. George Lucas wanted the opening to signal that this film operates differently, that resolution requires patience rather than escalation. Tatooine sits baking under twin suns, indifferent to galactic conflict, evoking the patient establishing shots Sergio Leone used to open Once Upon a Time in the West. This film isn't about running anymore. It's about stopping, confronting, and choosing what comes next. Number 2. Jabba's palace is the saga's moral low point. The palace interior represents something darker than the Empire ever achieved. A space built entirely for indulgence, cruelty, and stagnant power. No ideology drives Jabba's court. No grand vision justifies the suffering. Just dominance for its own sake, pleasure extracted from control, and violence as entertainment. Production designer Norman Reynolds studied historical decadence, drawing visual inspiration from Roman emperors and the opulent decay Francis Ford Coppola captured in Apocalypse Now's Kurt's compound. The set was deliberately cluttered, oppressive, and visually suffocating. Lucas wanted Jabba's palace to feel like the opposite of the Force, like power with no purpose beyond feeding itself. It represents the fate Luke is being tested against throughout the film. Number 3. Luke enters as a figure of uncertainty. When Luke Skywalker finally appears inside Jabba's throne room, his black clothing mirrors Darth Vader's silhouette almost exactly. Costume designer Aggie Gerard Rogers and Nilo Rodas Jamero deliberately chose a palette that visually linked Luke to his father, making audiences question whether he had crossed into darkness during the year between films. His calm is unreadable, almost unsettling. Mark Hamill said Marquand directed him to play Luke with dangerous certainty, channeling the cold confidence Clint Eastwood brought to the man with no name. He force chokes Jabba's guards without hesitation. He speaks with cold authority rather than youthful hope. The hero audiences remembered feels distant, replaced by someone who understands power and wields it without apology. Number 4. Luke's first victory is non-violent. Luke frees Han Solo and destroys Jabba's barge, but he never personally kills Jabba himself. Others fall during the chaos, drowned or consumed or lost to violence, but Luke refuses the spectacle of execution. The Rancor is unalived, but Luke doesn't celebrate. Jabba dies, but Leia delivers justice, not Luke. Marquand structured the sequence to show Luke winning through restraint rather than conquest, mirroring the moral philosophy Obi-Wan Kenobi embodied in the original film. But Lucas wanted Luke's strength demonstrated through what he refuses, not what he takes. Stunt coordinator Glenn Randall choreographed the barge battle to keep Luke's violence defensive, never aggressive. Power becomes visible through absence, through the moment Luke steps back and lets others finish what he started. Number 5. Leia rarely shows fear, even captured, chained, and forced into servitude. Inside Jabba's palace, Princess Leia's dialogue stays controlled and deliberate. Fear is never verbalized, only managed internally. Carrie Fisher said Marquand told her to play every scene like Leia was calculating escape rather than processing trauma, channeling the steel Fisher herself displayed during production battles over the infamous costume. Leia's outfit became notorious for its exploitation, but Fisher approached the role with defiance rather than victimhood, later joking that she strangled Jabba with the same chain that bound her. The film frames her strength as composure, not aggression. She waits, watches, and strikes when opportunity arrives, and both arcs converge during the moment she kills Jabba, delivering justice with physical determination. Number 6. Vader is watching long before he acts. Darth Vader appears observing Imperial construction, listening to reports, and waiting rather than intervening. The film positions him as a witness to Luke's choices rather than an active antagonist hunting his son across the galaxy. Marquand filmed Vader standing motionless in almost every early scene, letting his presence linger without action, evoking the silent menace Michael Myers brought to Halloween. James Earl Jones said the vocal performance required stillness, letting silence do the work between lines. Vader doesn't chase anymore. He watches. The Emperor commands, but Vader hesitates, caught between loyalty to his master and something deeper he can't yet name. Lucas structured structured Vader's arc around observation rather than aggression, showing that the character's transformation begins internally long before it becomes visible. Number 7. The Emperor is introduced without power displays. When Emperor Palpatine finally appears on screen, he doesn't demonstrate Force lightning or telekinesis. No shouting, no visible fury, just calm certainty delivered through Ian McDiarmid's quietly venomous performance. His authority comes from inevitability, not force. He rules because others believe resistance is pointless, that challenging him means choosing annihilation. Lucas cast McDiarmid specifically for his ability to project menace through stillness, the same understated terror Anthony Hopkins would later master as Hannibal Lecter. The throne room is minimal, architecturally cold, designed by Norman Reynolds to isolate rather than intimidate through scale. He already won before Luke arrived, and that confidence, that absolute certainty of control, makes him more terrifying than any displayed power ever could. Number 8. The second Death Star is intentionally incomplete. Unlike the first Death Star, which was fully operational when the rebellion attacked, the second station is exposed, vulnerable, and visibly unfinished. The Empire has grown arrogant, so confident in its supremacy that it doesn't bother hiding weaknesses. Norman Reynolds designed the incomplete sections to look skeletal, like the infrastructure of power laid bare, drawing visual inspiration from the exposed girders of skyscrapers under construction across 1980s Manhattan. Lucas wanted the visual vulnerability to reflect the Emperor's overconfidence. He believes the trap is perfect, that the rebellion will walk into annihilation willingly. They built it faster, bigger, more powerful, but without the caution that kept the first station hidden until operational. Number 9. Endor is framed as innocent, not strategic. The forest moon is bright, soft, almost peaceful in its natural beauty. The battlefield is intentionally mismatched with war, creating visual dissonance between environment and violence. Cinematographer Alan Hume shot Endor using natural light filtering through redwood trees in Northern California, letting the location feel untouched by technology or conflict. The Empire brings destruction into a space that never invited it, turning paradise into a war zone. Lucas wanted Endor to represent what the galaxy loses when the Empire wins. Not just freedom or justice, but innocence itself. Everything about the location resists militarization, making the Imperial presence feel like an invasion of something sacred. Number 10. The Ewoks are introduced as misunderstood. The Ewoks weren't designed as comic relief, though audiences often remember them that way. They're cautious, territorial, and genuinely threatened by the strange technology invading their world. They react to stormtroopers with fear, not awe. Lucas based their behavior on indigenous cultures encountering colonizers, specifically studying the Vietnam War's guerrilla tactics, where technological superiority failed against local knowledge. The Ewoks aren't simple, they're underestimated. Marquand directed the actors inside the suits, including Warwick Davis in his first major role, to play the creatures with dignity rather than comedy. The drums, traps, and coordinated attacks all demonstrate sophisticated strategy disguised as barbarism. The film reframes primitive as perceptive, showing that technology doesn't equal intelligence. The Empire dismisses the Ewoks as irrelevant, and that dismissal becomes fatal. Number 11. Han is no longer the driver of the story. Harrison Ford's character reacts instead of initiates throughout Return of the Jedi. His arc was already resolved in Empire when he admitted he loved Leia before being frozen in carbonite. This film quietly transitions leadership away from him, letting Luke and Leia carry the narrative weight while Han supports rather than leads. Ford said he understood the shift, but struggled with feeling sidelined after 2 films where Han drove major decisions, even lobbying George Lucas to kill Han in a heroic sacrifice. Marquand compensated by giving Han emotional moments rather than strategic ones. Han's journey becomes about accepting a smaller role, about realizing that not every hero carries the story forever. Number 12. The Battle of Endor is intentionally chaotic. No single hero controls the outcome of the forced battle. Plans fail immediately, signals break, units scatter. Lucas deliberately structured the sequence to feel disorganized, rejecting the clean tactical victories that defined earlier Star Wars battles. Marquand shot the Endor fight with handheld cameras, letting the frame jostle and lose focus during firefights, adopting techniques that would later define modern combat cinematography. The rebels aren't executing strategy, they're surviving chaos. The Ewoks improvise. Han and Leia react to circumstances changing faster than plans can adapt. Victory becomes collective, not individual. Everyone contributes fragments that somehow coalesce into success. And that structural choice reflects the film's broader message. The galaxy isn't saved by chosen ones. It's saved by ordinary beings refusing to surrender. Number 13. The space battle has no central perspective. The camera constantly shifts viewpoints during the Death Star assault, refusing to anchor on a single hero or ship. Lando Calrissian commands the attack, but the editing cuts away before his decisions feel definitive. Wedge Antilles destroys reality, reactors, but his triumph is fragmented across multiple shots. Lucas wanted the space battle to feel larger than anyone inside it, to show war as a collective horror rather than individual heroism. Industrial light and magic choreographed hundreds of ship movements, creating visual density that overwhelmed singular focus. Editors Sean Barton and Marcia Lucas wove together footage from multiple units into a relentless montage structure similar to the style Tony Scott would popularize in Top Gun. Number 14, Vader never lies to Luke. During the entire throne room confrontation, Darth Vader never speaks a single lie to his son. Every statement is blunt, fatalistic, and devastatingly honest. Manipulation is left entirely to the Emperor. Vader represents surrender, not deception. James Earl Jones said voicing the scenes required stripping away any ambiguity, delivering each line with exhausted certainty that recalled Orson Welles' weary Falstaff. Vader isn't trying to trick Luke into joining the dark side, he's simply describing reality as he understands it. The Emperor is too powerful, resistance is futile, the only choice is submission. He simply chooses differently when the moment arrives, and that choice matters because Vader never lied about the stakes. Number 15, the Emperor never touches anyone. Emperor Palpatine commands entirely through suggestion and certainty, never physically engaging with Luke or Vader until the final confrontation. Others act for him. His power operates through psychological dominance rather than physical presence. Ian McDiarmid said Mark I directed him to stay seated for as long as possible, to let stillness project control the way Marlon Brando commanded The Godfather's opening scenes from behind a desk. The Emperor doesn't need to move because movement implies effort, and effort implies vulnerability. He watches Luke and Vader fight, orchestrating violence without participating. Only when Vader finally acts does the Emperor resort to force lightning, and even then it feels like punishment for defiance rather than combat strategy. Number 16, Luke wins by refusing the narrative. Luke throws away his lightsaber after defeating Vader, collapsing the expected arc of the hero's journey. The climax isn't dominance, it's rejection. Lucas structured the entire throne room sequence to build toward a single moment where Luke refuses to complete the story the Emperor wrote for him. Hamill said the choice terrified him as an actor because it meant the hero wins by doing nothing, by standing defenseless and accepting possible death rather than claiming power. Luke doesn't defeat the Emperor through superior force mastery. He defeats him by making violence irrelevant. Strength isn't taking power, it's refusing it when everything demands otherwise. Number 17, Vader's choice is silent. Anakin Skywalker makes no speech before destroying the Emperor. No declaration, no moment of verbal redemption, just hesitation, then action. Mark I deliberately kept Vader silent, letting the decision happen internally before it becomes visible. The mask hides expression. The breathing continues unchanged. Only the movement reveals the choice. Lucas wanted redemption to occur without fanfare, without the emotional catharsis of a spoken turn. Jones said recording the breathing for those final moments required finding rhythm that suggested internal conflict without breaking the mechanical monotony. Redemption occurs internally before it becomes visible, and the silence makes it more powerful than any dialogue could achieve. David Prowse's physical performance shifted from stillness to explosive action in a single beat, the transformation happening between breaths. Number 18, the Emperor dies without ceremony. Palpatine falls screaming into the reactor shaft, and the film offers no legacy moment, no final words, no dramatic pronouncement. He simply dies. George Lucas refused to give the Emperor dignity in death, showing that evil doesn't deserve memorial. The fall is quick, almost anticlimactic after the buildup. Ian McDiarmid said the abruptness was intentional, denying audiences the satisfaction of a villain monologue or final threat the way Alan Rickman's Hans Gruber would later tumble wordlessly in Die Hard. The Emperor's death matters because it frees the galaxy, not because it completes his arc. Ben Burtt designed the scream to fade into echoing machinery, erasing the Emperor's voice completely. Darkness doesn't deserve understanding or sympathy. It just needs to end. Just absence where tyranny once stood. Number 19, Vader dies as a father, not a symbol. The mask comes off. The myth dissolves. What remains is human and finite. Anakin Skywalker's face, scarred and pale, becomes visible for the first time since his transformation. Lucas wanted the unmasking to destroy the legend, to show that beneath the armor and voice and terror, Vader was always just a man who made terrible choices. Sebastian Shaw played the dying Anakin with quiet exhaustion, stripping away menace to reveal someone simply relieved the burden finally ended. Hamill said filming the scene required finding emotional honesty despite decades of mythology surrounding the character. Makeup artist Stuart Freeborn designed Shaw's prosthetics to suggest vulnerability rather than horror, showing age and regret carved into flesh. The man underneath just wanted to stop hurting. Number 20, the final celebration is intentionally uneasy. Joy exists across Endor and the galaxy, but it's scattered, incomplete, uncertain. Ghosts watch from a distance. Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Anakin standing apart from the living celebration. Lucas structured the ending to deny complete closure, to acknowledge that victory doesn't erase trauma or loss. Mark 1 shot the celebration with fragmented editing, cutting between locations so rapidly that no single moment of joy settles. Han celebrates, but the camera keeps drifting to empty spaces where people used to be. John Williams' score swells with triumph, but the visuals refuse to match that certainty, creating dissonance similar to the ambiguous ending of The Graduate, where joy and doubt occupy the same frame. Victory feels real precisely because it acknowledges what was lost along the way. Star Wars: Return of the Jedi isn't about defeating evil, it's about refusing to become it. The film's power lies in what it removes rather than what it adds, stripping away certainty, spectacle, and guaranteed triumph. From silence replacing action to Vader's wordless redemption, from Luke's rejection of power to celebrations haunted by absence, the production was built on choices that denied audiences the comfort they expected. Which hidden detail changed how you see the ending, and which Star Wars film should we unravel next?